Hello students, in this lesson we are going to discuss another important topic which is ratios. So let's begin our day 8 challenge. And for all those students who are very consistent till this day 8, great job, keep working. And for the first time visitors, I would recommend you to go back to the previous challenges, complete the problems that are there in the challenge and then start your lesson here. Now, coming to these ratios, many have the belief that ratios and fractions are the same. And how do they say this? Because if you take a whole and if you take away one part of it, like 1 out of 4 parts, then we write it in fraction as 3 by 4. And how do I represent this in fraction? 3:4. So what this fraction denotes? We have taken 3 parts out of a total of 4 parts. Same way, fraction denotes we have taken 3 out of 4 total parts. So we usually tend to believe that both fractions as well as the ratios are same. But let's see what the actual definition says. The fractions are nothing but it represents the whole and the parts of the whole, whereas the ratio represents the quantitative relationship between 2 or more quantities. Let's understand this better with an example. Let's take 2 girls named Ria and Rose. Okay, so we have 5 books and let's distribute 3 books to Ria and 2 books to Rose. And how do I say that in fraction? We say that Ria gets 3 books out of a total of 5 books, whereas Rose gets 2 books out of a total of 5 books. But how do we compare this in a ratio? Yes, we compare the books given to Ria and Rose. How do we do that? We simply say that 3:2, which means Ria gets 3 books and Rose gets 2 books. And if you see the fraction always have the amount that has been represented to the total, whereas ratio compares the 2 quantities. And do we get the total number of parts and ratios? Yes, we do. We add up the 2 parts, which means 3 parts plus 2 parts gives you 5 parts. So there are totally 5 parts. In that, I'm giving 3 to Ria and 2 to Rose. So ratios are not always the same as fractions. Fractions represent for the whole, whereas ratio can represent for the whole as well as can compare the 2 quantities. I hope you are getting clear with the basic concept. Now let's see how this ratio is being represented. We usually represent in the form of A:B, for example 2:3. In this, the first term is called as, the A is called as the first term or antecedent. And the second term, that is B, is called either the second term as such or consequent. These are the basic terms used to represent the ratios. Now coming to the properties of ratio. So the value of the ratio will remain the same when you multiply or divide the ratio by the same non-zero quantity. What is the meaning of that? Suppose we have the number 2:3. If we multiply both these values by 2, we get 4:6, which means the values of both these ratios are same, which is 2:3, the simplest form. And if we take this 4:6 ratio, if you divide both the values by 2, you get 2:3 again. So basically the value remains unchanged. Either you multiply the 2 values by the same number or divide the 2 values by the same number, right? We either get the equivalent form or the simplest form. Okay. Now, how do we compare 2 ratios? Say for example, let's take the ratio 1:2 and 3:4. Okay. So we can compare the ratios either by converting them to the equivalent fraction or by getting the decimal value. So if it represent in fraction, you get it as 1 by 2 and 3 by 4. Now try to find the equivalent form. The first ratio will become 2 by 4 because our LCM is 4 and the second fraction will be as such. Now we got the equivalent fractions. Now compare the numerator. So obviously 3 by 4 is bigger than 2 by 4. So 3 by 4 or 3:4 is a bigger ratio. Or otherwise get the decimal value of it. 0.5 and the other one is 0.75. So obviously 0.75 is bigger. So 3:4 ratio is bigger. So by getting the ratio to the equivalent fraction form or by getting them to the decimal form, you can compare the two ratios easily and quickly. Okay. Let's see what are the different types of ratios we have. There are many different types. The first one is ratio of greater inequality. What does that mean? Suppose if you have two ratios such that A is to B and A is greater than B. It means, suppose if you add a number to this ratio, say for example, A plus 1 and B plus 1, doing this operation will actually decrease the ratio value, which means this will become bigger than your actual ratio A by B, which means the ratio value decreases. Such type of ratios are ratios of greater inequality. What is the ratio of lesser inequality? Suppose if A is less than B, then if you add a number to this ratio by 1, B plus 1, then it will be lesser than your actual ratio A to B, which means the A by B ratio will be the bigger one. Okay. And ratio of equality is nothing but when A equal to B. Even if you add a value to both the values, the ratio will become unchanged, will be remaining as such. Such type of ratios are ratio of equality. Duplicate ratio of A to B is nothing but A square B is to B square. So which means we are duplicating, multiplying it one more time. Subduplicate means taking the square root. Root A is to root B. Subduplicate of A is to B. Triplicate ratio of A to B is multiplying it 3 times. So A cube is to B cube. Subtriplicate is cube root. Cube root of A is to cube root of B. Inverse of A to B is simply B is to C. And the compound ratio, when we say the term compound, it involves two fractions, two ratios. So compound ratio of two ratios, A is to B and C is to D, is AC is to BD. Okay. Why I am saying all this type of ratios? In the competitive exams, you may be asked with one of such ratios. So you should know the basic definition of it. Now let's understand this ratio little more better with an example problem. So let's take this question. A question paper consists of questions, each of carrying half a mark, 1 mark and 2 mark in the ratio 2:2:1. So the order is very important. The first two refers to the half mark, the second two refers to the 1 mark and third one represents the 2 mark. So you should be paying attention to the order of the ratio. Next data that is given is the total maximum mark in the exam is 100. So the given data for all the word problems, try to write in this format. The given data is total mark is 100 and the ratio is 2:1. And what we need to find? We need to find the number of questions in each. Okay. The number of questions. Okay. Now coming to the problem, the first half a mark. If you note here, there are total of 100 questions in which the half a mark takes 2 parts out of a total of how many parts? If you find the total parts, 2 plus 2 plus 1, which is 5 parts are there. So half a mark takes 2 parts out of 5 parts of that 100 marks. So how much you get out of this? So 1 time, this is 20 times. So the answer is 40 questions. So half a mark takes 40 questions. How much this 1 mark takes? That is also 2 out of 5 parts. So that will also be 40 questions. And how much is 2 mark? This is 1 out of 5 times 100. 1 part out of 5 parts. So the answer is just 20 questions. And note down, you can recheck this answer by adding up all the questions. Say for example, 40 plus 40 plus 20 gives you the 100 questions back again. If by mistake, instead of writing 40, you wrote 20, then if you add up the number of questions in each type, you would have not got 100. That means that the question, that the answer that you have given is not right. So you have to rework on the answer again. For every question, you have to recheck and confirm that the answer is right before you go to the next one. Okay. So now the answer is right. So let's go to the next question, which is, if A is to B is in the ratio 2 is to 3, then what? Okay, we have still more. And B is to C equals to 4 is to 17, then find A is to B is to C. So you have to bring everything to one ratio. So A is to B and B is to C are given. 2 is to 3 and this is 4 is to 17. Basically, you need to make this two the same in order to compare between the three ratios. So now taking the LCM of it. What is the LCM of 3 and 4? It's 12. So let's make the B term as 12. So if you want to make this B term 12, then we should multiply the first one by 4 to get 12. So this also should be multiplied by 4, because when we multiply by the same number, the ratio remains unchanged. So it is 8. 8 is to 12. In the same way, you multiply this by, so here you have to multiply by 3 in order to get 12. So this also should be multiplied by 3. So you get 51. Now basically our B became same now. So we can simply write that A is to B is to C is 8 is to 12 is to 51. So that's our answer. It's very simple, right? So ratios are important, as well as once you understand, any problem will become easy for you. Okay. So let's go to our actual challenge, which is challenge number 8. Problem number 1 is, divide 207 rupees among 3 friends A, B, C in the ratio 1 by 6, 1 by 4 and 1 by 3. Note that the ratio is now in the fraction. So first try to get it in the normal form and then the problem becomes easy for you. The second problem is, if A equals to 2B, then B equals to 3C. Then find A is to C. Apply the concept that we have discussed. You will find this problem easy to do. Okay. Don't forget to post your answers. We'll see you again with the answers in our next video. Thank you.